Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank Bill and Cioffredi for inviting us to speak at the series. I think we're very honored to be here. And also thank all of you for taking the time on this beautiful afternoon or evening to come out and hear what we have to say. So our talk today is called I'm standing right in the middle of it. Okay, well, here we go. The power of positive health and why psychology is at the center. I'd like to start with a number today. $85,000. This is the average cost in the United States for a hospital stay for a patient admitted for a cardiac procedure. The CDC says that we spend annually $320 billion on heart disease and strokes. If you do the math, that adds up to just under $1 billion a day on heart disease and stroke. And yet today I want to show you some studies and touch on a few, but basically there's a lot of literature out there published that show that up to 80% of heart disease is preventable completely by a healthy lifestyle. So I've been thinking a lot about this and trying to figure out what's the problem. And a month ago, I was on the beach in Mexico on vacation with my family, and I was walking down the beach on a beautiful afternoon and stumbled across this resort that had king-size beds lined up all the way across its shoreline, right in front of the ocean. I went back the next morning and took the picture before anyone showed up, because that afternoon, each one of these beds was filled with happy vacationers, all of whom were overweight, most of whom met the criteria for obesity, and they were lying on these beds in the middle of the day, surrounded by plates of food, mostly nachos, and they could see there were servers milling around, bringing them beers and mojitos and whatever else they wanted. And my first thought was WALL-E, the movie. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's a kids' movie that really features inactivity. And my second thought was, what have we done to our culture? And it made me really realize that healthy living is really countercultural. We are incentivized to live unhealthy. And I think that contributes to why healthy behaviors and healthy choices are really difficult, much more difficult than we think. So I told you there's lots of research that shows that these healthy behaviors, in fact, help prevent disease and save a ton of money. So what are those healthy behaviors? These are them. It's not complicated. Physical activity, 150 minutes per week is the guidelines. That's 30 minutes 5 times a day of moderate activity. It doesn't have to be vigorous. Healthy eating, and by healthy eating we mean lean proteins, whole grains, and fruits and vegetables with mostly plant-based foods. Healthy weight. So a normal BMI is considered to be between 18.5 and 25. You can see here most of the studies actually do their healthy weight on a BMI of 18.5 to 27. That's in the overweight category. What that tells me is, and what we know is, you don't have to be skinny to be healthy. You just need to find the healthy weight for you. Not smoking. For those of you who are past smokers out there, it's okay, don't worry. If you're beyond 5 years, that also confers a decreased risk of disease and an increased promotion of health, but not smoking, certainly one of them. No more than moderate alcohol. Some diseases, no alcohol is better. There was just a study released yesterday that showed that any alcohol, and the more the worse, increased the risk of breast cancer. The less alcohol decreased that risk. In general, though, the guidelines are for women, 1 drink per day, no more than that, and for men, no more than 2 drinks per day. Healthy sleep. For adults, 7 to 8 hours. If you're not sleeping well, come talk to me. We'll figure that out. Stress management, certainly, and I'm going to leave that to my partner over here, Dom, but stress management is something that's been studied in strong social relationships. Of the studies, though, most of them look at some component of these 8 different categories, but these top 5 are really the ones that are most studied. So, looking at some studies, I wanted to highlight a couple. This is an abstract, which was presented last week in Europe, and it looked at the risk of inactivity, not moving. Talked about how physical activity is important, not moving is just as important in an opposite direction. This study took 28 healthy young adults who were walking 10,000 steps a day, and they decreased their activity down to 1,500 steps a day. That was the only change. And they maintained that 1,500 steps per day for 2 weeks. And then they took some measurements. And in those 2 weeks, those young adults had a decrease in lean muscle mass, an increase in body fat percentage, and a decrease in their heart and lung function, their heart and lung thickness. The body fat percentage increased, interestingly, in the center, what we call central adiposity or visceral adiposity. This is important because the cells that sit in the middle here, the fat cells, are the most metabolically active fat cells we have in our body. So what happens is when those cells become enlarged, which is what happens with fat cells when we gain extra weight, we don't make extra fat cells, we build or grow the ones we have. When they become enlarged, they start to become dysfunctional, and that they're very metabolically active, releasing all kinds of chemicals and hormones into our body that promote disease. So they become more metabolically active, and that's why the cells in the middle increase the risk, showing that even 2 weeks of decreased activity increases your risk of metabolic disease, such as heart disease, stroke, and cancers. Fruits and vegetables. This study came out earlier this year. Fruits and vegetables are good. It ends up more is better. 10 servings, patients that had 10 servings or more in this study had the most decreased risk of all these diseases. The American Heart Association has their Simple 7. It's kind of similar, only it's adding some other measurements that practitioners will take a look at. But you can see it's very similar. American Heart Association has studied these Simple 7, not just in heart disease, but in other diseases, and they found a decrease in all of these. In addition to this, outside of the American Heart Association, healthy behaviors have been shown to increase cognitive function, decrease the risk of erectile dysfunction, decrease cancers, like I said. There's been quite a few of different conditions that have been improved with healthy lifestyle. So it seems pretty simple. This one looks at heart disease, a decreased risk of heart attack. It ends up, every time you add a healthy behavior, so the ones below, you decrease the risk of having a heart attack. This study looked at 20,000 people. It was a population-based study, and if you added all 5, the patients that had all 5 healthy behaviors had a 79% decreased risk of having a heart attack. This was done in men. There was a similar study done in women, about the same amount, 20,000, that showed the same result. This study looks at cancer. This one was released last year, and essentially they took patients, several thousand patients, and divided them into 2 cohorts. Those that were able to maintain 4 low-risk lifestyle characteristics, which included healthy weight, and in this healthy weight, moderate alcohol, no smoking, and the physical activity guidelines. And with that, you can see that the low-risk category had a decreased risk of cancer. That's compared to the high-risk category. Interestingly, when you compare that low-risk category to our general U.S. population, the risk was even decreased further. To me, that suggests that our U.S. population is more unhealthy than the high-risk group in the study. And I think this is the last study I have to show you. Again, there's a ton of research, and the literature is coming out every day. There's more and more research that's showing all of these healthy lifestyle behaviors and choices improve health. And we can really prevent so much disease and cost and everything that goes along with those conditions. This one looks at cognitive function. This study shows, you can see it's looking at executive function, processing speed, memory, and then an overall neuropsychological evaluation. All of them improved with healthy lifestyle behaviors. On this note, there was just a study published last week, I think, or this week, that showed that patients who had vascular dementia, which is the second most common cause of dementia, Alzheimer's being first. Vascular dementia is, I would describe it sort of as the heart disease of the brain. So this is chronic, long-term decreased blood flow from narrowing of your arteries to the brain that can cause dementia, second most common cause. They took patients with vascular dementia and divided them. Those that walked an hour a day versus those that didn't. The ones that walked an hour a day, they then did a functional MRI to see how the brain was working, and actually the brain had to work less hard in those patients that walked to maintain attention and to make quick decisions. So again, these are the healthy lifestyle behaviors. Simple, right? Absolutely. So we should all be achieving them, right? Here's what the studies show. 3 to 6%. I have to write 3 to 6 because some studies show 6, some studies show 3. There's no just direct number. But what the general message is less than 10% of Americans are achieving all of these healthy behaviors. Why? I think that answer comes down to redefining or looking at what health means. We're talking about healthy behaviors. What is health? First of all, we need to think about health in a more positive way. Health is not just the absence of disease. The World Health Organization defined health in 1948 as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. The CDC today has a similar definition of health, only a lot more words, but essentially it's a process that allows us to live the life we want to live. That's sort of paraphrasing it. This highlights that. Health allows us to reach our greatest ability in every aspect of our life, whether that's in the workplace, at home, with our children, grandchildren, doing our daily activities, whatever the case may be, health helps us drive that. But I think we need to rethink how we're approaching health, how we think about health. Again, it's a positive thing. But here in the United States, we tend to think of it as mental health and physical health. But that's not the case. The two are always intertwined. And we really need to think of them as total health. Because it's the total health where we really can combine the mind and the body, that we can achieve that positive health that can maybe help us understand why we can't reach those healthy lifestyle behaviors, and more importantly, how we can get those healthy lifestyle behaviors. So, with that in mind, on total health, I want to turn this over to Dom here, so he can kind of work through that part of it.
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everybody here at Cioffredi for having us. So as Kathy is...
Nope, can't hear you.
How about that? A bit better? No, I'm shouting at you. Okay. All right. So Kathy's talked very well about why the importance of looking at health in general and not distinguishing between these two. So I don't know if any of you know Mr. Donato, but he was my 10th grade science teacher. And Mr. Donato was a short little guy with a big scruffy mustache, bad case of dandruff. He used to talk like this. And one day he called pairs of students up to the front of the classroom. And one half of each pair was blindfolded and had their sleeves rolled up. The other half lit a match. But then without their partner knowing it, they reached underneath the counter and they took out an ice cube and they touched the ice cube to their skin. And all of them screamed, "Oh, what'd you do that for?" And they whipped the blindfold off and they see their partner holding an ice cube. Now, all of them reported feeling heat. And in a couple of them, their skin started to turn red as though they had been burned. For me, it was one of those moments, all the air was sucked out of the room. And I remember the thought very clearly, wow, we don't experience reality, we create it. That was it, I was hooked. I was a psychologist from the 10th grade. Because I had to understand the mind. Brain is interesting, but mind is fascinating. So here's an example when it comes to stress and health. This study looked at how Many people, of course, in the U.S. report stress as a major factor of their distress. And that's very true here in the Upper Valley. And it's associated with poor mental and physical outcomes. But that perception that stress affects health does the same. However, when you combine a high level of stress in life and the belief that stress affects health, it confers an additional 43% increased likelihood of premature death. So not only having stress, but believing that stress is bad for you is what is really bad. If you look at stress as something that's helpful, this is a normal function that helps me deal with dangers and stressors of everyday life, it's not that bad. Now, chaos in theory in medicine would say that an unhealthy organism is not free to vary. You can't get outside of very narrow parameters without getting into trouble. We can all regulate homeostatically and across many other functions within ourselves. But unhealthy organisms, when faced with stress or shock, can collapse and spin off out of that homeostatic regulation into what's known as allostatic dysregulation, and then they take a long time to come back to baseline. Whereas a healthy organism can quickly bounce back, and that's the resilience figure at the top. And not only bounce back, but perhaps even be better for it. In my work as a psychologist, I've done quite a bit of trauma work. I was one of the main responders to 9/11. I was on site 2 days after it happened. Worked with a lot of very, very traumatized people for a very long time. And it's amazing how well the ones who viewed this as an opportunity to grow in themselves and get better, how well they really did. Human beings are tremendously resilient as a whole. And it's our greatest health asset. And if we think about resilience, it's really about self-control, self-efficacy, efficacy being defined as the belief that I'm capable of accomplishing certain ends. Perseverance, grit, flexibility is also important though. If we get stuck on one path and we're never able to get off of that, that's not good either. We need adaptability. We need to be continually changing according to the way the condition calls for it. Resilient people are able to embrace discomfort. And Cathleen was posing the question about why don't people change? They often don't embrace discomfort. They flee it regularly. Our culture is full of that. I once saw a picture of a drive-through funeral home. There was a casket in the window. People would drive up, they didn't get out of the car. They paid their respects from the car, and they drove off. Probably to the drive-through CVS to pick up their prescriptions. And also, resilient people have what I think of as real hope. Many people think of hope as the belief that everything is going to be okay. That's not real hope. Because we don't know. None of us knows what the next minute in our lives is going to be. Real hope is not knowing and having the courage to continue on. That's real hope. So the Yerkes-Dodson law, Yerkes and Dodson were two psychologists hired by the U.S. Army back in 1917. And the Army wanted to understand, why did some soldiers run headlong into a hail of bullets and the other soldiers ran headlong off the battle? They wanted to really understand it. So Yerkes and Dodson formulated this relationship between performance and arousal. So that at very low levels of arousal, it's called coma, there's very low levels of performance. Perform very well. But then performance increases with arousal up to a mid-range level of arousal, you get your peak performance. And beyond that, it starts to degrade again. So that at very high levels of arousal, performance is back to zero. And understanding this relationship is very important in trying to change behaviors and understanding how to actually live with healthy behaviors. Because depending on where you are on this graph, Either you have very little motivation to change, or you're highly anxious about making those changes. It's going to make a big difference. You've got to try to get to that middle. So how do you get to that middle? There was a basketball study done years ago. They had two groups of basketball players, equally matched for foul shooting ability. Group number one was told to imagine a beautiful shot before they shoot. Beautiful arch, swish all net, and then shoot. Group two was told to imagine a horrible shot. A brick off the back of the iron, an air ball missing the rim altogether, then shoot. Which group shot better? Two. Why? Because they began to embrace their discomfort, their anxiety about having to perform, about having to be perfect. And in doing so, that lowered them down on the arousal and increased their performance. But secondly, and more importantly, it allowed them to shift their focus away from the outcome and onto the process. So now they weren't thinking about whether the ball was in the basket. They were thinking about, are my feet set apart, are my knees bent, am I bringing the ball over my head, am I releasing it off my fingertips? The rest takes care of itself. When it comes to healthy behaviors, it's process, not outcome. It's not number of pounds you want to lose. It's process. What am I doing on a moment-to-moment basis? That's what matters. Now, in any change process, and I see this all the time as a psychologist, but it's true medically as well, that there are ups and downs as we make our way up. There are setbacks along the way. People might try to change their diet and they get a few pounds weight loss and then they're back up again. And it's a setback and they catastrophize. Oh my God, this is terrible. I can't get this done. I might as well just go back and start eating the way I used to eat before. And they're back to doing what they're doing. And they deepen that setback. However, if we look at those setbacks as really important points to learn, we can take ourselves up in an even stronger way. And thinking about that, those points of the setbacks at the bottom are all points of resilience. That's how we build resilience. We fall, we pick ourselves back up, and we learn. There's some Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs that love to fail. That's where they learn. And they get better. If you look at it from a macro view, interestingly, years ago, Abby Cohen, who was the chief economist at Goldman Sachs, she took 70 years of stock market data and collapsed it. And what she got was not this kind of a pattern, but she got a stepwise function. Smoothed out. And that's true for many, many aspects of human behavior, because the stock market is a reflection of human behavior. But it's even a reflection of evolution itself. Stephen Jay Gould talked about punctuated equilibrium. It's the way evolution proceeds, not smoothly. So we have to know where we are in the change process in order to do something different. Which brings us to this idea of psychological fitness. Now, everybody knows physical fitness. We think about it all the time. Certainly, it's very important here. There's also psychological fitness. And that represents cognitive, behavioral, and emotional health. We can divide those three apart. It's a complete set of skills and strategies that are learned and practiced. These are capacities that anyone is able to learn and practice. But it's contextual. So our fitness might be stronger in some areas, just as our self-efficacy beliefs may be, than in others. It's about being flexible, that free to vary, like I was talking about before, and resilient. And it's the optimization of those processes to achieve peak performance and adaptation. And that's really what positive health is. It's aspirational. It's not black and white. We're not either healthy or unhealthy. We're always capable of achieving greater health. And psychologically fit people seek that optimization. Okay. this is not a condo in New York City. This is actually a training box that learned helplessness was first formulated. This is important because if you think about changing health behavior, there's a lot of learned helplessness. If you listen to the thoughts of people that are trying to change, I can't do it, there's no point in trying, I've done it before and failed. There's all this kind of learned helpless thinking. Now how it originally worked was one side of the box was electrified and the other side was not. And an animal was put in the electrified portion and the wall was dropped so they couldn't escape and the shock was turned on. Can't do those experiments today, but back then they could. And the animals would often jump and howl and try to get off the screen, but the shock stayed on. And eventually, the animal was shocked to the point where they just laid down on the grid and took it. Now at that point, if you open the wall and they could see that they could get away from the shock, they didn't do it. They continued to lie there and take the shock. Now, in the course of training that effect, if you gave them one opportunity to get out, before they lied down fully and took the shock, you just opened the door once and they could escape. And then you put them back in and you shocked them to the point that they lied down. Every time you open the door, they would get out. Now, when it came to the human studies of this, Marty Seligman is a psychologist down at Penn who first did these studies back in the 70s. And then when the human portion of this, what Marty found was there was about 30% of people that you can't create this effect in. They are just so resilient that no matter what you do to them, they're going to get out every time. He has since moved on to learn optimism, which we'll come to in a few minutes. Okay, so there's these three portions of ourselves. Our thoughts create our feelings. Did anybody here have the thought, oh, I'm going to be late for the talk tonight? Anybody here? And what emotion does that create? Little anxiety? I don't want to walk in late, I want everybody to see me. And so that because our thoughts create our feelings, those feelings in turn lead to behaviors. They motivate them. We as human beings have two sources of motivation, generally speaking. Appetitive motivation, motivation for an appetite, to acquire and consume. And aversive motivation, to flee unpleasant or painful situations. And we need both. But when they become imbalanced, that's when problems begin. When they become inflexible, that's when problems begin. So that in turn, the behaviors that we engage in lead to more thoughts. People are often caught in this circular kind of thinking. Now, from the CBT world, the cognitive behavioral therapy world, this is a quick look at what the conceptualization would look like for any person. And it begins with the core beliefs that we hold about ourselves. And there's two basic camps of belief. Beliefs having to do with our autonomy, beliefs of helplessness, or beliefs about our lovability and our connection to other people. And from those flow conditional beliefs that are if-then statements. And so if-then statements can be either declarative, such as informational. If I am unloved, if I'm unlovable, then I will never be loved. Things like that. Or they're procedural. If I'm unlovable, then I should be pleasing to everybody in my world. And that leads to strategies such as being a people pleaser, being assertive, all kinds of things to make sure that they're not loved. They are loved. But unfortunately, what those strategies bring them back to is right to their own worldviews. Now, if we look at it from, say, a behavioral perspective on health, much of these cycles, and I see it all the time, begin with this sense of weakness in the face of whatever it is that the individual is struggling with. A cigarette, a piece of chocolate cake. When we're stressed, that sense of weakness grows even more. then that automatic thought pops out, oh, the cookie will fix it. It's going to make me feel better. Your cravings for it increase. You have a question?
Yeah, can you hold that? It's harder to hear in the back, I think, with some of the noise.
Oh, okay.
There. You'll just hold that closer.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep, you got it. I thought you were going to ask a question.
I'll say that.
Okay. All right, so cravings increase, and learning to identify those cravings is very important. What it feels like to really want a food or a substance or something else. And then the next step is the most important one. It's the giving permission. Do we give ourselves permission to go after that? Oh, just this one time. I'll start again tomorrow. It's okay. I deserve it. I had a hard day. All these thoughts about permission. But then, you've got to actually get the stuff. If you don't have the stuff on hand, you're not going to be able to do it. And in this case, it leads to overeating, which leads back to weakness. I failed at it again. I can't really do it. Kathy talked about a 5-year timeline with quitting smoking. Okay, so my quit date was June 26, 1988. It was midnight. It was Falls Village, Connecticut, in the bathroom of my boss's weekend house we let us use for that. It was a Marlboro Red. I took my last drag, dropped it in the toilet. But for the occasion, I bought a brand new pack of Marlboros, and I left them right on the coffee table the whole time we were there. And I would open the package, and I would smell it, and I love the smell of fresh cut tobacco. And I'd hold the cigarette. What was I doing besides torturing myself? I was getting through that anxiety, like I was talking about before, because I tried a couple times before that and failed, and I knew I was very anxious around cigarettes. But I was also showing myself that I had a choice. This was my choice. I'm an adult. If I want to continue smoking, smoke. If you don't, don't. Completely up to me. So I kept practicing making that choice. Took the cigarettes home with us and left them on the coffee table there for about another month. And one day I was walking through the living room and I noticed, oh, they're just like another object on the table. That was the day I picked them up and threw them out. Now, the question is, do I still love to smoke? Yes. That never changes. That doesn't go away. Do I still get cravings to smoke? Yes, especially when I'm stressed. And that thought will go through my head, oh, I could really use a cigarette right now. But I remind myself, no, you don't smoke anymore. Oh, okay. Let the cravings pass. And so my self-efficacy in relation to that substance has grown a great deal by continually practicing making that choice. That's how you change health behaviors. Now, there's some maintaining processes that, again, go into continuing to distressing or dysfunctional behaviors. I talked about aversive and repetitive imbalance. But the second one is really critical, and that's an over-reliance on escape and avoidance as a way of coping. Now, this gal who was on the slide before, she's a real gal. I just got this from her this week. She relies on those cookies as a way of getting away from her negative emotional states. She doesn't stay with them. She flees them. And that will be known as safety maneuvers, things that we do that we think give us a measure of safety, when in fact they often put us in more danger. Selective attention is a very important part of maintaining distress and disease. So if I were to ask you in this room, in your heads, to spell the word die, was it D-Y-E? If I have a room full of anxious people and I ask them to spell the word die, almost 100% will say D-I-E. Non-anxious group, 50% D-I-E, 50% D-Y-E. So anxious people are prepared to see threat, even when it's ambiguous. And they pick it up. But then if I leave that in front of them, I show them a screen with the word die, and I ask them to look at the screen, the anxious ones are the ones who flee it. They look away. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see the word cancer. You flee. They don't stay long enough with the threat in order to process whether, first of all, it's the threat that they believe, and second of all, whether they can actually handle it. There's an overestimation of risk. When people are scared, they overestimate the risk of what's about to happen to them, and they underestimate their ability to deal with it. There's memory system dysfunction and learning impairment. This is specifically aimed here at benzodiazepine use. Benzodiazepines are frequently used for use of anxiety. However, what they really do is they impair learning, so people never have the benefit of knowing that the things they're afraid of don't really come true. Inaccurate feedback signaling. In dysfunctional systems, feedback signals often go awry. Take chronic pain. Chronic pain is no longer signaling true tissue damage. If it were, we would want to flee. If we step on a shard of glass, we want to be able to take our foot off of that without thinking about it, and quickly. But in chronic pain, it's not really signaling it, but people are reacting to that pain as though it still is, and they do less when they should be doing more. Rumination. Okay. So, a ruminant is a class of animal that chews a cud. We should know them up here in the Upper Valley. Up and down and up and down and up and down. Somebody who ruminates is doing that. They're going over and over and over and over and over the same thing. And it can go in any direction. So if we're ruminating about a threat in the future, we're going to feel anxious. Oh, I'm going to that party tonight and they're going to have chocolate cake and I know I'm going to have to be eating again and maybe I shouldn't go to the party. No, I want to go to the party. Or they might ruminate about a loss or a failure in the past, which leads to feeling sad or depressed. Or harmed or blocked in the present, they feel anger. That's 7:30 in the morning over here on South Park Street when I'm trying to get to work. And then it can also ruminate about things that they want to consume or acquire in the present. And that leads to mania and addiction. Now, it's these conditional beliefs that matter, like I was saying before. Most people, if they believe if I'm uncomfortable, I should flee. But they have to learn that if I'm uncomfortable, I should stay. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to just quickly go through a couple of things. If we think about in positive psychology, there are these resilience competencies. You can see them there. Self-awareness, being aware of oneself. Emotionally, physically. Self-regulation, the ability to be able to do that for yourselves. Mental flexibility, grit, connection, and here's Marty's optimism. Now, optimism is associated with lots of different things, like a 25% less risk of heart disease, longer lifespans. It's a pretty good thing. Except for me, I don't so much go in for optimism. I'm a realism guy. I think we need to look at things accurately and realistically. They're often not good. But if we're accurate, we're in the best position of dealing with it. Now, emotional intelligence is Daniel Goleman's concept. If you look at it, it's remarkably similar. Self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, being defined as the ability to see the world through other people's eyes. It's not sympathy. It's not feeling sorry for someone. It's simply the ability to see it the way that they do, or the mental flexibility that he was talking about in the previous slide. Motivation and social skills. And Goleman would say that leaders, for example, equally match for variables such as intelligence and experience and all of that. The ones that are high on the emotional intelligence scale are much better leaders. So we're into optimism, positive health, and so it's PERMA, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Now, engagement. When I moved up here from New York, I thought to myself, wow, there's a place that's more competitive than Manhattan? And all of a sudden I started to realize that's not true. They had something else. And it's what determines happiness. This is my last slide, so I'm going to go back to What determines happiness? People answer that a number of ways. But when you really look at it, once you have enough food in your belly and a roof over your head, because you need those two things in order to be happy, you need commitment. That's what brings happiness. That's what the upper belly is.